So I start off this year pretty strong with my personal favorite game, Ghost of Tsushima. This game is like a 10 out of 10 experience. I'll probably never forget it. It makes you feel like a true samurai with its perfect combat. It feels a lot like Jedi Fallen Order, which in turn makes it feel a lot like Dark Souls. Man, the animations for the sword are absolutely beautiful. And the way you attack and all the different stances you can choose from. It just has a perfect feeling to it. About the story, I like how it's not actually about Coat and Khan. It's more about, family issues that need to be resolved. Your uncle's all like, hey man, you should do tradition and stuff. It's pretty cool. But then the tradition ends up, costing people's lives and costing your own life. You realize you shouldn't just run into a base all willy-nilly. The visuals are also absolutely perfect. They are absolutely colorful and it'll definitely age like wine. And every single environment is completely varied, different from the next, but still utterly beautiful. Now I know there's a lot of particle effects, and people get kind of angry that there's a lot of particle effects.
There is too much shit being kicked up all the fucking time. I get it. You have good particle effects.
But personally, they don't really bother me that much. Now, side quests are pretty fun. There's a lot of them, and they're short, and the best part is that they flesh out the characters in the world. Now there is some filler in there, but you're never bored when you play them. This game really wants you to play after you're done with the main story. There's so many collectibles, and they're rewarding, there's a lot of them, they're fun, and they really do keep you playing. And even though the reward isn't all that great at the end, man, are they super fun to collect. Something else that keeps you playing past the main story missions is the co-op multiplayer. It's fun, it's a good start, but it definitely needs some updates, but I don't think there are going to be any updates. After a week, you could probably finish the entire multiplayer. But anyways, this game, it's just a 10 out of 10 full package experience. It's just personally my favorite game. It just feels so well interwoven, and it feels like they had one clear vision in mind when they were making it. My first Call of Duty game was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019. And then I decided to pick this up because I needed to fill up my Christmas list with something. This game is garbage. The best part about the game is definitely the campaign. It's great, it's fun. Some of the missions are really good, especially that dream mission where it's kind of like the Stanley Parable, but it's too short. It feels like it was chopped down due to time constraints, but again, it's still very fun. The raid tracing is a nice touch. The worst part is the multiplayer. It's awful. It has bad maps, bad guns, bad mechanics, bad gameplay, and all the attachments feel the same and they suck. It's boring, but the zombie modes is alright, I guess. It does feel extremely lazy and rushed though, the entire game. Animations are super lazy and all feel the same. They're super similar. The campaign was cut short and there's not much to do after you've done everything you want to do in the campaign and the multiplayer. And it takes up so many gigabytes for what a small, worthless game it is. And the worst part about it is that for a game that takes place in the 1980s, it does not feel like the 80s at all. You just forget that you're even playing in the past. It just feels like you're playing a bland Call of Duty game. It is empty. It's forgettable. I only remember 2 campaign missions out of all of them, and it only feels like there are 2 campaign missions. I don't remember one good, smart play from the multiplayer that someone posted online, and the YouTuber Drifter brought up this argument too.
Sleep with my AR-15.
Nobody talks about this game because it's just not good. It's a total missed potential. You come for the campaign, you leave because of the multiplayer. 3.5 out of 10. Most of those points go to the campaign. Now, Astro's Playroom is basically a tech demo, but it's the best tech demo you're probably going to play in real life. It takes the PlayStation 5 controller and it just absolutely blows your mind. Every part of the controller is used, from the microphone to every single little hydraulic built inside of it. It is the PlayStation 5 gold standard of controller use. They'll probably never make another game with this perfect use of the controller. The gameplay is simple, fun, it's kind of easy, it's just some basic platforming, nothing much, but the maps are very detailed. Every grain of sand you touch moves. Everything has a reflection on it. All the water moves, cartoony but with great graphics. It's also one of the easiest games to platinum and earn all the achievements for. It's like a super easy 100% platinum. And this game is a nostalgia trip, but it's a nostalgia trip done right. It's charming, and there's so many Easter eggs going from Resident Evil to Metal Gear Solid. Basically, every game on Earth is referenced in this game at least once. And the collectibles are probably some of the best I've ever seen in a game, even better than Ghost of Tsushima. You can unlock PlayStation items and move them augmentatively with the PlayStation controller. For a PlayStation 5, it's perfect for its console, and it's free. Xbox can barely compare. It's a tech demo and a nostalgia trip done right. It lacks a little bit in the gameplay, but still, it's just straight up 9 out of 10. Enlisted is probably the absolute worst multiplayer I've probably played in the game in my life. It has this utterly stupid squad mechanic where 1 out of every 4 players is real and then the rest of them are bots. By the way, the bots are garbage. They're clunky, they're not fun, they're annoying, they're way too easy to kill. and the rest of your squad dies when you're not controlling them because they're just so dumb and easy to kill. And the squad system is probably the worst I've literally ever seen in a game. It's gimmicky, it's unfun, and it's pay to win. You can buy squads and upgrade your guns and stuff and get tons of the best guns, and that's the worst part. If you have one favorite gun, like let's say you had an MP40 and you wanted all your troops to have an MP40, well, you're gonna have to get 4 MP40s to fill up your squad. So you can only use your favorite gun like once in the entire game because your squad, when it gets wiped out, it has a stupid cooldown. So you have to go to like garbage secondary squad that only has a bunch of bolt action rifles. The guns are clunky, they all feel the same, they're forgettable, the animations are extremely lazy, and the progression is like the early moments of Star Wars Battlefront 2 2017. The maps are repetitive. There's only like 6 and they're all completely ugly with grayscale and, just okay graphics, I guess. The vehicles are the worst I've ever seen in a game. You are blind, you can barely move, you will get no kills, and it's completely unplayable. And every person that you hear talk about this game is usually sponsored. Don't listen to them. They're reading off a script.
Participate in the final battle of World War II in Europe, including conquering and defending the inner of Berlin, if that's something you would want to do, as well as Reichstag in intense close quarter city combat. Thank you, Enlisted, for sponsoring this video. Check it out, it's a fun game.
They probably were waving some real cash at him because this game is absolute hot garbage and everyone keeps saying it's great. It's like the Raid Shadow Legends of first-person shooters. And it also chooses realism over gameplay, which is not a good sign. Because if I'm not having fun, I don't care how realistic the game is, because I'm not having fun. It wants to be a mix of realistic shooters and arcade shooters, but it fails at both. 2 out of 10. The only reason why it's not a 1 is because you can actually move in the game and actually shoot in the game, and it's not utterly broken by bugs. Now, I haven't played much Fallout. I played a little bit of Fallout 3 and a little bit of Fallout 4, I guess. But the standout of all of them, or at least Fallout 4 in particular, is the Wasteland. It is really fun to traverse. It's distinct and instantly recognizable. And it's a good modernization of Fallout 3. And the best addition that they did to Fallout 3 is that they added color. It's actually decently colorful for a gray wasteland. But the worst part about the wasteland is the enemies. Not particularly the enemies, but how you fight them. The gunplay is not good. It's clunky, it's got bad controls, and every gun you use is underpowered unless you're in like the starting zone or something. The style, though, is great. It inspired a generation previous, and it's inspiring a generation now. It's carrying the torch, and people still trying to copy it, like, in the Outer Worlds and other titles like that. And the best use of the style is the opening part. It's probably the best part of the game of what I've played so far. It gives your character a connection to the war, but for some reason, everything takes place in 2077. The war in Fallout 4 starts out in 2077. Cyberpunk is in 2077. And in that one episode of Loki, Lamentus 1 is destroyed in 2077. I don't get it. But the radio mechanic is also probably one of my favorite parts of the game. They got some really good playlists, and it makes it feel like the wasteland is alive. And speaking of the radio, there's also the soundtrack. It's an improvement on older Fallout games, and it's absolutely perfect. You can show anyone this theme, and they'll know that it's from Fallout, because it takes an old kind of crappy theme from Fallout 3 and they completely rebooted it to be one of the best themes in any video game ever. Truly carrying the torch. But the worst part are the characters, not the personalities. I haven't really found any personalities in the characters yet. It's just the mouth animations are so terrible, and the lip syncing is the worst I've ever seen in a game. I'm not going to give it a rating because I haven't played the game enough. Now, I've never played any God of War games, so God of War 2016 is my first one. But one thing I will say that is probably the best part of the game are the characters. They're great, very memorable, they're full of emotion, and the story always pushes them into conflict. And the voice acting is not bad. The world is also a really good part of it too. It's detailed, it's very beautiful, and has a lot of points of interest, but it does feel kind of overwhelming when you first start. The combat is the worst part of the game. It's trash, it's overcomplicated, and the enemies are just too strong, even on the easiest difficulty. It's just not that fun. So far, the story's pretty good. It pushes you right into the action, and the soundtrack perfectly fits with the story. Soundtrack is pretty good so far, but the only thing I've listened to really is the main theme, so I can't really say too much. The movement is absolutely terrible. This coincides with the combat. You can't jump, it's fiddly. It's just, something's very off about it, but I can't put my finger on it. For my first impression for a God of War game, it's pretty good, but I'm not really enticed to play any more of it, and I haven't played enough, so it's gonna get a no rating. So Uncharted 4 is my first Uncharted game, and the first thing I felt right off the bat when playing it is that it feels like modern Indiana Jones. It truly feels like it's carrying the torch of that series. It is an action-packed story with a perfect adventure plot, and it truly feels like you're playing inside a movie, which is an experience a lot of games have trouble getting right. The combat, it's good. It's not great, but it has a lot to be desired in it. But, the rest of the game perfectly makes up for the combat. The soundtrack is really good. The game is the most detailed game I've ever seen. And sometimes people, like me, spend extra hours just testing the game for how detailed it is. Even the mirrors work in the game. Wow, how come games don't use mirrors more often? I don't know why, but there's so many nice, cute little details. Like when you're taking a picture, you can move the camera to the side and take a picture of your friend too, and he'll comment on it. And when you get into a vehicle, depending on what degree your character's facing and what position they are facing towards the car, the animation's different. When you leave characters alone and walk away from them, they start their own conversations and talk. The world seems huge, it's detailed. It's giving Battlefield 1 a run for its money when it comes to details. The story is perfect. It hits every single right beat for a good story. And it's pretty open to outsiders like me who's never played any of the games. It is a timeless tale, and it's entertaining all the way through, and it hasn't aged a bit. It is a true technical achievement. It still looks better than next-gen games, and it'll probably never age, honestly. It looks absolutely fantastic. One thing I will say though, I didn't really have a true emotional connection to the game like a lot of people do, because I never played any of the other ones, but I could still appreciate that it is a true era-defining game. 9 out of 10. I don't feel like I can give it any more. It didn't put as much as impact on me, but still, pretty good. Alright, most of my friends absolutely hate the game Rogue Company. I didn't really get why they hated it so much, because I played a bit and I didn't think it was that bad.
It's time to get paid!
But man, upon replay, Rogue Company is just aggressively mediocre. That's the worst gameplay gimmick I've ever seen, and they don't even advertise it. The first one to pull the trigger wins, and it does it worse than Call of Duty. I don't know how. It is completely undependent on skill, and also the time to kill is just absolutely painfully slow. The style is all over the place. It's undistinct, and all the jokes they try to make are pretty unfunny.
Timo was born ready.
It's completely forgettable. Now, one thing I will say about the game is that the best part is that cinematic trailer that they posted. But the rest of the game, just skip it. The content is lacking. It feels like a nothing sandwich. When I play this game, the only thing that pops in my brain is time equals wasted. All the rogues or agents or legends or whatever they call them these days feel the same. They only record like 3 voice lines for each one, so it's super repetitive to play as them. And the voice acting's bad, so it gets annoying too. Sometimes you laugh, it's so bad. I was gonna give this game a 5 out of 10, but I just, upon replay, it's just worse than I thought. Now I'm just gonna jump right into this one. It's fun and it feels like true combined arms. There are tons of maps, with the majority being amazing. All of them are fun, even the bad ones. The bad maps, objectively bad maps, somehow still feel fun and immersive. In fact, this is the most immersive game I've ever played in my life. It is just so perfect with all the voice lines, all the screaming in the background, all the war cries. It's just extremely immersive. And there's also diverse locations and locales with their own unique soundtracks to go with them. Unlike Unlisted, they do gameplay over history. They make sure the game's fun before they make it historically accurate, but it still has enough history in it to wet a historian's pants. And also, every player has anti-tank to combat tanks. Now, the Act Man brought up that the soundtrack is perfect. The soundtrack is worth $60, but luckily DICE was nice enough to throw in a game in there. It truly is perfect, and my favorite video game soundtrack of all time. It's my favorite multiplayer game of all time. In my opinion, objectively, it's a perfect Battlefield game, and it is the most immersive game I've ever played. It's like a 9.5 out of 10. So later down the year, I decided to replay Ghost of Tsushima in Kurosawa mode, which was good. But honestly, after a while, you start to miss the color. Now, the game does perfectly fit black and white. The camera never shakes or does some crazy movements like in movies. And it does truly feel like old Japanese cinema. And at some points, it does feel like you're playing in a movie, but not at all in some areas. Now, the visuals are still stunning in black and white. But after a while, you start to miss color and the feeling wears off. It's kind of gets underwhelming after 3 hours. And you start to miss the color. You want the color back. But the duels are the best part in the black and white filter. They are perfect, beautiful, and it feels like you're truly in a film. And the cinematography is great, especially the long shots. Now the cutscenes are good, but underwhelming at points. Sometimes they're great, but there's no Japanese lip syncing, so their lips are just moving all crazy while the language is completely different. but the wide shots definitely steal a show. It's good for a few hours, but it gets repetitive. But the core game is just so good. You know, it's a 7 out of 10 when it comes to the Kurosawa mode. And this is only based off the main storyline missions. Now, Chivalry 2 is known for a good combat loop, and I will say that the combat loop is 100% addictive and is dependent on skill. It's fun, it's balanced mostly, and it's just an utterly perfect gameplay loop. But the problem is that they need to update it with some more weapons and stuff. The maps feel a lot like Galactic Assault from Battlefront 2 2017. They're great, immersive, and they're fun, but there's just not enough of them. That's the biggest problem with the game. It feels like it needs to update immediately. It can last you maybe for a solid week, and then after a while, you just want more. You need more modes, weapons, maps, and classes. Also, the Team Deathmatch maps are not very good. It's a good game mode, they just need to give it more than 2 maps. The style is bloody, it's distinct, it's immersive, and it does truly feel like a medieval Battlefield game. Good gameplay and a good start for a game, but it needs to update now. 7 out of 10. This is my first Doom game, Doom Eternal. The first thing I'll say off the bat is that the gunplay is perfect. I love the mechanic where you have to switch weapons and conserve ammo. It's snappy, and the finishers are absolutely great. Perfect melee animations, especially with the chainsaw. Those are pretty good too. There's tons of gadgets to use and some really good 1000 IQ plays. The movement is great. It is kind of platformy, but you know, it's quick, it adds speed, it makes you feel godly. Now the story is non-existent. You're supposed to kill like 3 hell priests or something like that. It's kind of garbage, but you know, I'm pretty sure the game knows it's not about the story. There's tons of collectibles that adds replay value, and they're super fun to find, and the man cave in the Doom Fortress makes them 100% better. And also, the first Doom game and the second Doom game are absolutely free in an Easter egg. You unlock one of them on a code on a computer, and in the same computer, all you have to do is complete the campaign of the main game, and you can unlock the first Doom game. The visuals are cartoony with fantastic graphics, has varied maps, and when they say that it's hell on earth, man, do they mean it's hell on earth. It's absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. It's high octane, perfect combat shooter. It makes you feel super sweaty, and it gets you cooking. I'm giving it an 8.5 out of 10. Now, Resident Evil Biohazard is my first Resident Evil game. The story, it's simple, but it's the execution that is the best part. There are so many mind-blowing events and scenes. It's actually scary in some parts compared to other Resident Evil games. And there's some like jaw-dropping, heart-pounding, fist-clenching scenes. It's just really good, gets you in the moment. The map is pretty nice. Somehow they made one big mansion have a lot of varied areas inside of it. It's distinct, instantly recognizable. Pretty good. Now the farmer antagonist dude, he's kind of scary at some points, and he has the best voice line in the game.
Welcome to the family, son.
But the worst part is that the Tallahassee Shuffle's in it, which the Cosmonaut Variety Hour talked about a little bit in his review of Resident Evil Village, and I can see why he doesn't like it. I actually want to fight the enemy and not make him run into furniture to get away from him. The combat and movement is not very good. The guns are slow, the melee weapons are kind of fiddly, you know, stuff like that. But the style is pretty good. It feels like a breath of fresh air compared to other Resident Evil games. I like the southern aesthetic. Decent performances, especially from a video game, especially that mom there in that kitchen scene. In fact, the kitchen scene is pretty nice, but I haven't finished the game entirely, so I'm going to give it a no rating. Now, I played Splitgate on console, but when they say it's a beta, they mean it's a beta. Like, whew, the servers are probably some of the worst I've ever seen. They are either always under maintenance, they're always full, and they're buggy when you actually get to play, and they always kick you off for no reason. They are absolute garbage. The weapons are just like, I don't know, lame. No weapon is a standout. There's decent to awful guns. They're completely unmemorable with lazy animations. Now the portal is the unique twist that saves the game for me. It adds a lot of unique plays and cool situations that you can make with the portals. Now one thing I don't like that the portal does is it forces you to camp behind them in some areas, which, you know, kind of sucks. There's not enough maps that rarely utilize the portals to its truest extent. Some are too big, some are too small, and they all feel super similar and repetitive. And you know what? It feels like a generic ripoff of Halo. Honestly, it is a ripoff of Halo at this point. It doesn't feel like an homage, it just feels like a straight up copy. If after 3 hours, it feels like you've done everything in the game. There's just not enough stuff in it. It's a mediocre game if you can find a server. 4 out of 10.